Hi, I want to take you through the process of building a application in Juicebox. I'm going to create something that is based on a data set that I found called the top 250 beers. So I have a bunch of beers, the brewery and style, and some different measures of popularity and rating and the amount of alcohol in them. So that's the data set we're going to use to get started. I'm going to show you how quick and easy it is to build an application in Juicebox. To start, you can start with, we have a series of templates, charts, even some examples to show you what things look like. I'm going to start with a blank application. I'm going to call it Top Beers. And I'm going to just step through this process. You can add a description to your application. We have a bunch of really cool themes that were added recently. And I choose a color theme. I can choose a font. And with that, I will create the application and we're going to jump right into building it. The first thing you want to do when you create an application is you want to load up that data file. Now you can outline your application and the content that you want on the page, but I'm going to get started. I'm going to pick that file, which I had downloaded as a CSV file format, and I'm going to load up that file. And what we're going to do is identify the columns that are in that data table, and that gives us the building blocks, what we call the data ingredients for building your application in Juicebox. So that is going to load up in a moment here, and you'll see all the columns that came in from that. These are the same columns that are in that table, and we're going to go straight into the design process. So this is the design tab. This is where the action occurs in Juicebox. We have our the settings and themes. There are some nice places in Juicebox to customize things, so you can put colors, fonts, icons, emojis are all part of that. You can change the header style. One of the first things I'll do is just often when I'm working in an application, I'll just put in some of the key metrics as a starting point, so I can say, let's just summarize some of the data in here. The average rating. We had the total number of beers, the average alcohol by volume, the popularity, the average number of ratings in from that data set. Close that, save that. We're going to call this overall metrics. That will give us some overall values, but I think one of the really interesting things in here would be to create what we call a leaderboard. So in this next section, I'm gonna create a leaderboard. We'll put that title on the screen too. Showing top beers, we'll say. So sometimes just to start outlining things, you put your titles in there. A leaderboard works by you pick the thing you want to be comparing and ranking. So in this case, we'll pick beers, and then you pick the different measures that you want to compare those by. So the average rating score, popularity. So we're just going to use that same measures that we used before and put that in our leaderboard. So that's going to give us a ranking from this data set of the top beers. And what's cool about a leaderboard is when you select something in here, it's going to show where it is in that column, but also where it ranks in the other columns. I did something a little interesting in here to include the number of beers because I had this idea that the other thing that we could do would be to let the user of this application decide whether they wanted to compare. We have these different dimensions in here. We could show beers, but we could also show breweries or styles. So I add another chooser above this, and that's going to let someone actually select. If I go into here in the leaderboard, instead of saying beers, I'm going to define it based on what gets selected above. So now if I select breweries, you'll see that that's going to show up as the top 10 breweries. And there's a cool little feature where you, instead of saying beers, we can dynamically change that statement. So that's it. Real quick application showing beers.